the genetic conversation, we keep it going, testing these genetics. A lot of breeders are a little loosey-goosey with testing them, and they seem to be putting a lot of genetics out, and then their process on how they do it. Do they utilize people in the community? Do they have expert processes and separate locations that they do all this stuff? Or is it a situation where they're winging it, pollen chucking, and tossing it out? I think it's a conversation we should touch on, and also maybe go over some of the processes of actually testing, what somebody who's putting out genetics should do, or somebody who is a tester, processes they should focus on.
Yeah, and there's really no standards, and that's one thing that can be frustrating. I actually released a video kind of just talking about the frustrations, how some of the breeders aren't on the same page when it comes to testing. So just to keep a note, some of the things we say in this episode are going to be, I guess, subjective, right? These are things that we
Strong
feel,
opinions.
right? Strong opinions, or ways that a lot of breeders do it. But not, we can't say that all breeders do it, because everybody kind of has their own unique perspective of how testing should be done, when it should be done, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you know what? Over the last couple of weeks / months, there's been a little bit of controversy in terms of what is enough testing. Is it acceptable? Is it acceptable to use your community that's following you to test your genetics? And I think that's a great place to start. I think we should actually start with, like, why would anyone test their genetics? What's the importance of testing their genetics?
Well, when you cross A and B, you think you're going to get C, but you could get something else.
F.
You could get F.
That's the tough part.
Could get
I'm right now on D.
To flip over and become hermaphrodites, right? An undesirable trait that comes out of plants. And so it's really, there's two different types of hermaphrodites. There's stress-induced ones, which are really nanners that come out of the buds. So if you're in flowering, for example, and you give too much light, for example, you could have nanners coming out of the buds, and once those nanners come out, they're called anthers. They spread pollen all over the place. And that's very undesirable, right? Because if you got other females in that tent that are in flowering, well, then they're going to start producing seeds within their buds, right? So you've got the stress-induced, but you also have genetically induced, I guess, genetically hermaphrodites, a genetic trait where it's a hermaphrodite, where it's really pollen sacs kind of at the nodes, and they're actually pollen sacs, so not just the anthers. And that's something that I've told that you can really make it a recessive trait, so not so much dominant to where it's going to show all the time. And when I'm told that it being recessive, you can never fully get it out of the genetics. So you could breed this F1, F2, F3, really narrow things down, but occasionally you could have one of those F5s that you've stabilized so much, one of them could actually come out and produce pollen sacs. So those are the things that we want to kind of, why test? Well, we want to make sure that hermaphrodite trait isn't occurring, the one that's genetic isn't occurring dominantly. And then we also want to make sure stresses are being done in order to make sure that, hey, if there's light stress given or drought stress or too much nutrient salinity stress, that it's not producing anthers, right? And cutting the growth short, for example, because that's undesirable.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we touched on it in a recent video about genetic mutations. I don't want to be smoking on pollen. I don't care. It's a no-nut November for me. I don't want that in my mouth. I think people underestimate the ability of, like, oh, it's a rookie mistake, you messed up, versus genetic induced or genetic related traits. I think people need to figure out stability with genetics before they launch them, so we don't have to stumble on this. So I don't have to be a new grower who gets these genetics who then's like, damn, I just suck at growing. It's like, no, dude, this was from the genetics. Mm-hmm. These were shit genetics. Like, they may smoke good. I've had great ones that the flavor was amazing, looked super pretty, loaded with shitty immature seeds. It's just situations where if you don't dial this in before it goes to market, that's on the breeder. The consumer, like, that's been an argument before, of is it the breeder or is it the consumer?
And we did a whole video on it.
Yeah, and it makes you think more and more. It's like, well, shit, I'm a decent grower. I've never ran into this until I got your genetics. Like, you may have never run into it either, but dude, I'm not doing anything crazy. Mm. How did I get herms? I will say, recently I grew that garlic butter, and that one I didn't expect to have any herm issues, but damn it, it hermed on me. And I didn't pay attention to it because I didn't expect it to herm. So only once I was trimming, and I was like, damn it, everywhere. And I've found little seeds since then.
Testing is so important. I think globalization has allowed for the spread of commerce and products from one side of the globe to the other side of the globe. And if I was a breeder and I wanted to ensure that a gardener or grower of mine in Australia is going to get the exact same effects as a grower of mine in Alaska or New Zealand or South America or in the Middle East in desert regions, I want to know that this product is going to thrive. It's going to be successful. Like any project, it's like, I want to know that the project I created will stand the test of time. It will be able to handle most situations and still provide the effects that I love to those that are trying to grow it from around the world. And so, yeah, I think it's very important that a breeder does testing at home first for, like you said, for drought, for heat. There's some things that I feel like are just more prevalent than others. You know, for example, heat stress. I feel like the majority of people that deal with a problem deal with heat as a stress or as a problem. Low humidity. And I feel like that's another, too intensive light. Yep. That's another one, or too low.
That's a heavy one.
That's a heavy one.
Heavy one, yeah.
So it's like, I want to know that my genetics might be able to handle that.
But how can you do that if you don't utilize a community or group of people? How can you simulate 5 variables of stress tests? I mean, you've got the space. If you got a pole barn or garage, and you could have 5 tents that are separated as this one is light stress, this one is nutrient. Because if you're doing them all at once, we don't know the variable that you need to try to focus on. Or say, hey, here's a heads up. You know, if you give somebody a heads up on it, man, I had Louis XIII OG, and the company I got it from even mentioned this one has been known to hermaphrodite, but it's such good smoke. And when I tell you this thing was full of seeds, this was like brickweed, dude. It pissed me off. Like, it was so fire. And like, I would smoke it, but there'd always be a seed you hit every single time, always. I think that's where it's their responsibility to stop that before it gets to that point, but at least being transparent helps. You know what I'm saying? Being like, hey, this genetic can happen, but it was so damn good, we want to release it to the people. Like, man, the flavor is worth it. And if you're an old school smoker, you're used to picking out stems and seeds, whatever. But when it comes to these new genetics that somehow make their way to market that fast, how did you do all this stress testing in that time? Because myself right now, I'm a year plus in, and I've only done 2 of 3. There's no chance that unless you're not growing bud for yourself, like, how do you emulate environmental stress in 5 different ways in one growth cycle, and then it's released to market, and it's an F1, F2, how did all of these things occur? How are so many people breeders now? You know what I'm saying? There's got to be something more to it, and if you do that, you should just be transparent. Okay, we're pollen checking. This is what we found. This is the price, or it's a tester. Like, shout out to Chad Westport. You get like a t-shirt, you get all these things to be a tester, and the price is affordable because he's like, hey, these are tester seeds, but I got to pay for them in some sense. Some may disagree with charging for testers. Some may agree, but the value that goes with it and the transparency of what it is, in my opinion, makes it totally viable and valuable to somebody. Just like the argument of not putting F1s out. Somebody might want that, and you're taking it away from them by making the breeder decision. The only variable that I see as bad is knowing your plant's susceptible to hermaphroditic traits, knowing that you have issues because you did some testing and then putting it out and not telling people.
No, geez. Yeah, unethical approach.
That's great. Or like you've only tested outside, but you're selling to indoor growers. What the hell is that?
That never happens.
No one's ever done that before. This FTS clip was brought to you by AC Infinity, leaders in garden innovation. Use discount code TheStash15 at checkout to save some money on your order.
From the Stash Podcast.